Welcome to the Talk and Chatter Experience powered by Gasoline Alley Harley Davidson. Today's guest is Moto GP Mechanic and basically lifer for Moto GP, Brent Stephens. Welcome, mate.
How you going? Good to see you.
Very good, mate. Thanks so much for having you at your house, for one thing, and welcome back to Australia. And who's Brent Stephens?
Yeah, I'm a farm boy from New Zealand, basically.
Yeah.
Milking cows, got wayward in motorcycle racing, and this is where I am. This is where I ended up 25 years later.
What a crazy story, eh? To come from NZ, which a lot of, it's one of those places where a lot of hands-on people do come from, hey?
Yeah, I certainly believe that now in hindsight when I see, more globally, because when you grew up in New Zealand, you're a little bit, you are isolated, although you're not, but you live in your little bubble sort of thing, and I, not for 1 minute did I ever think I was going to travel the world doing what I was doing, because I had no interest in road racing at all. I just farm bikes and motocross bikes, and that's what sort of led me there.
So when you first jumped onto a motorcycle, I'm guessing it was a farm bike originally, eh?
Yep.
When did you pursue it into a motocross bike, or when did you start doing all that sort of stuff?
I was probably a pretty late starter, when you look at the ages of guys riding bikes now, but just started racing the farm bike, basically jumping the local neighbours on, made our own jumps and all that sort of crazy stuff. And I never raced junior motocross, I just went straight into senior, so I was 16 pretty much, and I only raced for 7 years.
Yep.
And I still really loved it, but I think I sort of was realistic about it. I was pretty good, not the best in New Zealand, but top 5 sort of thing. And I realised that there's so many other things I want to do. Do you just dedicate your life to doing that and miss out on those other things? And me and my younger brother started racing jet skis. That was the beginning of jet ski racing in New Zealand. So him and I
stand up.
Yep, because that's all there was back then, Kawasaki's. Yep. So him and I just raced every opportunity we got for like about 5 or 6 years, and won New Zealand titles and that sort of stuff. And
wow,
yeah, had to go at that. Then did some car racing, HQ Holdens, raced those for a couple of years.
Best fun ever.
Yeah, water ski, just tried everything as much as I could, because I just wanted to experience life and not sort of feel like I dedicated myself to something. And you either decide you want to make a career out of it, I thought, or just enjoy life and tick off as many boxes as you can. So I did that.
Mate, you ticked off a few at the start, like early on, hey?
I did. I guess at that stage I still really didn't know what I liked. I enjoyed all of them pretty much, sort of thing, and I didn't sort of favour one from the other. And still, when I was racing cars, I was still riding jet skis and stuff, and still a little bit of motocross when I could, but nothing, hardcore.
So where was the jet ski race in New Zealand? Where was that all happening?
We raced in Wellington Harbour, and we raced up at Taupo.
Yep.
There was a place close to us. There's like a lake sort of thing. We'd have set up courses, but it was at the beginning of racing in New Zealand sort of thing. So there wasn't that many clubs, and it was all hands on. There's all closed course. You go out there, and we'd had log jumps and all that sort of freestyle events. And I look at it now. The racing they have in America, and it's just phenomenal how it started.
Yeah.
Because Kawasaki had the patent, so there was only Kawasaki 300s, 440, 550, nothing. Yamaha wasn't even able to have a ski at that stage.
Is that right? So Kawasaki owned the patent for a jet ski?
Yeah, for a good 10 years, and then when that came off, they kind of sat on their hands a little bit, to be honest, I think. They didn't develop it enough. And then
they owned it.
Yeah, and then when Yamaha came along, they came with their super jet, and it sort of transformed everything. I mean, it's good that Kawasaki is still going now, but, Yamaha dominated again for a while.
Yeah, Yamaha's obviously probably the market leader now, I'm guessing.
I imagine so, yeah. I mean, there's a lot of Sea-Doos and stuff out there,
sure.
But I don't know the real reasons behind that.
Yeah, but I know it's one of those sports or hobby/sports where the marketing is such a huge part of it, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, you're going to get diehards. I mean, I've always only had Yamahas.
Yep.
I mean, Yamaha always a leader in marine, so I always thought that it's not like you're bringing in something that they don't know about building an engine for the ocean and all that sort of stuff. So they were pretty reliable. So I've always had that. I've never had a Sea-Doo, although my brother does and he swears by them. But
really,
he's got a mate that he's got a Sea-Doo shop, so that sort of thing changes everything, right?
So is he here as well?
No, all my family are back in New Zealand. Yeah.
When did the mechanical side of things start? Like, obviously being on a farm, you've got to be pretty hands-on. So when did that all start for you?
Well, actually, because I just started racing, and one of bigger motorbike shops in New Zealand, I knew the guy that I was racing against him, and he offered me an apprenticeship. Basically, it was a Suzuki dealer. I was racing Suzukis, and I just left home at 16 and moved away, an hour away from where the farm was, and set up camp there and did my apprenticeship and raced under his banner. And that's when I did all of my racing in New Zealand, pretty much, for Suzuki at that stage. And that was, 4 year apprenticeship.
So what are you talking about? RM Suzukis?
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
Very nice.
Yeah, the beginning of it all.
So what sort of era are we talking about for bikes there? Like what sort of years are we in there?
I was born 65, so that was like 80s.
Yeah, yep.
I remember the full floater Suzukis, and that was the very first of them, RMZ. And that changed motocross for with the radiators down low, with the cooling, the full floater suspension. They just wiped Yamaha, because I had ridden Yamaha a fair bit at the beginning, but they just made such a good bike straight out of the gate there with that.
So did you stay at that shop you did your apprenticeship at for a long time?
Quite a while, yeah. I did my apprenticeship and stayed there, and then I left there probably a couple of years later and started a business with a friend of mine. It was like dismantling bikes and selling a few second-hand ones and stuff like that. But then my boss that I used to race with, that owned the Suzuki shop, he asked me to come back, and I went back there as a salesman.
Oh, right.
And I did 2 years working there as a salesman, and that was good. I really enjoyed that as a change, because I think it's nice to be able to have a good overview of what you're selling.
Definitely. Yep.
Like from a mechanical point of view and reliability and all that sort of stuff. And at that point, when I was doing my apprenticeship, actually, to extend the story a little bit, Simon Crafar was an apprentice when I just finished my time. He started working there.
What is a bike mechanic?
Yep.
So is he a bike mechanic?
He's a bike mechanic. Probably a lot of people don't know, and he doesn't really say anything about it.
He's a qualified bike mechanic.
I'm pretty sure he's qualified. But he was there and he was doing his apprenticeship. I know for sure. So he was there in the workshop when I was working there, and we became pretty close, sort of thing. To the extent where I used to date his sister and stuff like that. But and I moved to Auckland for a little while. Worked in a bike shop up there, and then he went to England. I think he started racing in England, and then went to Italy and to the World Superbikes, and he got me to go over there and work for him, and that was the start of my racing career as a mechanic, basically. And that was in '95. I went over there with him with Rumi Honda.
Wow. So was it RC45?
Yep.
Yeah. Gee, what a nice bike, eh?
Yeah, it was. Yeah, because it was pretty much the second year of the RC45, because they had the RC30, and this was a much better bike.
Yep. And
I was really lucky, because the team I went over there and he was riding for was a satellite team, and didn't have a lot of money, and it was based in Milan, close to Milan. And one of the riders, I can't even remember the HRC rider that pulled the pin at the last minute, American guy, and Simon got the ride, basically.
Wow.
So they wanted him, but he rode it in Rumi colours, original sponsors' colours, but it was a factory bike. So my first year doing the World Superbikes, we ended up on a factory bike.
Oh, mate, that's unreal.
So, another couple of Kiwis, Norris Farrow and another guy from New Zealand that were working, I think they were working with Aaron Slight and stuff like that over there. So I got to work with them, so it was pretty cool. So straight away I was straight in a factory team, and it was pretty cool. It was a pretty daunting experience straight out of the gate, flying from little old New Zealand over there, drop into Milan and be thrown to that, because I didn't speak any Italian, and a lot of the people that I was working with didn't speak any English, so it was pretty tough to start with.
And at that time, it was booming as a sport too, hey?
Yeah, the World Superbikes were great then, the list was endless, and it was a great era to be in. I'd say it's better then than it is now, for sure. I try and follow it, but it doesn't seem to have the depth that it had back then. Yeah,
definitely. Probably 95 through to 07, 08. Probably Troy's time. I know that's sad to say for the sport, but when Troy retired, both Troys, I feel it sort of lost a bit of pizzazz, if that makes sense, So.
Yeah, well, it did, because Colin stayed there for quite a while.
Yeah,
Colin Edwards. There's a lot of
Noriyuki Haga.
Scott Russell. Ones. Scott Russell was there when I was there, but it was fun times. As daunting as it was getting into it.
Yep.
Everyone was super friendly, and they used to have nice parties after. They used to hang out in the pits a lot more. Everyone was socialised there. But when you compare that to now, it's such a different level now.
geez, you've seen both sides of it, hey? Like from now, I'm guessing, and we'll get to it, but it must be just corporate to back then where you have sponsors, but the sponsors are part of everything and have a party and stuff, I'm guessing.
Yeah, I mean, I almost feel like the corporate thing runs MotoGP now.
Yep.
And you sort of feel like the racing part is like secondary to it.
Yep.
Whereas it never used to be. I mean, I know that's probably not the case. A lot of people don't see it that way. But, you know, back in the days of superbikes, you go win races, all the corporate stuff takes care of itself.
Mm.
Whereas now it seems to be the other way around. You know, we'll put on this big show and we had a bit of a bad day.
Yep.
You know, but that's how it seems.
It's sort of catered that way now.
Very much.
You know, it does seem that way. So, did you have much of an interest in road, even like you're saying motocross and stuff, before you going over with Simon, or was it?
No, not at all. I mean, I did when Simon was racing in New Zealand. I went and gave him a hand a couple of times. They had a thing called the Marlborough Series, and it was they raced in Whanganui, and I went and helped him for a weekend sort of thing. That was it really. I didn't have an interest other than I had a motocross bike and I did a couple of road racing events in Taupo and stuff like that where you put slick tyres on your motocross bike and race around, but no, not to the extent. I mean, everyone saw the posters of Wayne Rainey and John Kaczynski and all those sort of guys. Yep. But it was never, 100% never a passion of mine, not at all.
Wow. What a way you've come, eh? Like seriously, from 95 to 2020, you've been in the road.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. No, even now, you get so wrapped up in the situation, you don't actually where you've gone. Yeah. You know, I mean, one year leads to the other. I mean, it does in life in general, but think of
what a puzzle.
Well, they rattled off when I left Yamaha, they rattled off the statistics of how many races Grand Prix I'd done, and it was 400 something. It was, wow. I mean, it was amazing. I just went, I don't remember walking to the start line that many times, that's for sure.
Because like, for me, and, you know, hope this comes across well, but, you know, you've been on the MotoGP or 500 Grand Prix side since 99?
99, yeah.
So I'm 36 now. Yeah. So I've watched you on TV for, you know, since I was a kid, and like to see, for you've been out on the grid all those damn times. It must be weird looking back at it when you do have time to reflect.
Yeah, I do. I mean, I've got time to reflect now, and you still really kind of don't, because it still doesn't feel that far away. And I guess in parts of me think that maybe I'll get back there. Yeah. And but yeah, there's a lot of water under the bridge. That's for sure.
Definitely.
You know, I mean, I've done that more than I've done anything else in my life, and that was quite a few years ago that I realised that. Yeah. You know, 25 years of racing.
It's a long time.
Well, 25 years of travelling backwards and forwards to Australia on an aeroplane.
Yeah, well, that's it. Like, the amount of flights, you know, if you put the statistics of flights alone, like you would have flown more than most pilots, you know.
Well, Alex Briggs and I, we travel all the time together, and you can have those flight trackers now that tell you put in how many, all the flights you do and stuff like that. 540 or 560 flying hours we did last year, or the year before. Yeah. The last full year season we had, yeah. And that's just flying, not airports.
Not the downtime.
No, just on airplanes. So it's a massive amount. An hour and a half every day for the whole year. It breaks down to basically.
It's a long time out of your week, isn't it? You know?
I guess I look at it the way a lot of people jump in a car and drive to Brisbane for an hour each way.
That's true.
And think nothing of it. And I just jump on a plane for an hour and a half and someone serves me a drink. So it's
Yeah, that's your trip to work. You'll go to a Masano for a trip to work. So 500s. So you went World Supers and then 500s with Simon as well, hey, at that time?
I did 3 years with Simon in the Supers with 2 with Kawasaki and 1 with Honda.
So did he go to the ZX7 after that, eh?
Yeah, he did 96. He went with Muzzy Kawasaki when we were based in Spain.
It's a good package, eh?
Yeah, it was back then, yeah. And then the team changed with Harold Echo, the German team, and we did another year there. And then in 98, I came home back to New Zealand. I wasn't quite sure what I wanted to do. And I'd worked with Mike Webb, the Kiwi guy, who's now the director technical director of MotoGP. I worked with him and Simon. He was the engine guy and I was the chassis guy. And Mike rang me in 98. He did 98 and said, look, hey, we need a mechanic for the 500 project, because that was when Wayne Rainey had stepped aside and they started a new team with Max Biaggi and Carlos Checa. And he said, just come to, and I'd just moved to Australia basically and had a job lined up And he said, just come to Amsterdam for 2 weeks, build some race bikes. We want you to stay. If you don't want to stay, we'll pay you and send you home, and it's all, you got nothing to lose, basically. And I sort of, my mates around me convinced me to go because I felt like I hadn't quite ticked off all the boxes that I could have ticked off. And so I jumped on a plane, went over there and signed a contract, and that was it, basically. And I ended up working with Carlos Checa.
In 95, when you first went, did you expect just to go for a few months?
No, not 95. When I went over to Simon, the intention was to go over there and...
The full...
Well, at least do a year, you know. I almost came home.
Yeah.
It's a big...
Were you homesick?
Not really homesick. I just had another mechanic that was there that made life really, really difficult.
Really?
Like really difficult. And the people that... the team manager and his wife, one day I just said, look, I'm going home. And they said, why? And I said, well, because of this and this and this. And they ended up, no, we don't want you to go home. That's not right. And sorted it out. And the other guy left and I stayed. So it was a fine line between, leaving or staying.
Yeah.
And I'm glad I ended up staying for sure because I got to do what I've done basically. So
wow, that's a huge step, at that point. It's very early on.
It is, yeah. But I think I said to them, I said I didn't come over here for a weekend. I said it takes a lot for someone to move from the other side of the world.
Yeah.
Not knowing where you're going, what you're doing, and stuff like that. So I said I didn't take it lightly.
Yep.
But I said I'm not here to get messed around either. So I want to do the best, and I want to be in an environment that's good for everybody, including the rider. And it's got to be harmonious. Always was like that, and it most certainly has to be now. When you're working with a lot of guys.
When you're back in that era, what would a weekend be like? What would you be working on a bike? Would it as a mechanic?
Well, back then, because there was with the superbike, you couldn't change gearboxes and stuff like that because they're all sealed in the engine, same as they are now. But it was just general maintenance, basically. I mean, suspension. It's the same as what we do, like in the Grand Prix scene, but we change gearboxes and we have a lot more to do. Suspension, cleaning, brakes. I don't know. I always thought when I first went over there, I went, God, you got three mechanics for 2 bikes. What do you guys do for that? All that there, but you find, I mean, you're not always busy, but when you are busy, you're busy. You need those people. If you have a crash or an engine failure or something like that, that's when it's all hands on deck. So there is a reasonable amount of downtime sometimes, but just general maintenance. You got to, the adjustments they make for the suspension, the geometry and stuff like that. There's time you get there and clean a little bit of the bike when it comes in after a session, get your wheels out, do the fuel and everything like that. And then you're waiting for the guys to have a meeting to decide what they're going to do for the next session. Before you know it, time rolls on and a couple of hours are gone in a heartbeat, and then you're back out on the track. So the day rolls on pretty quickly, I tell you that.
I can imagine. It'd be a hectic time.
Yeah.
So when you went to Yamaha in that 98 period, that would have been around the time of they started experimenting a little bit with different cranks and stuff like that, didn't they?
Yeah, and that was 99 was when I started with because I went into 98 to build the bikes. 99 was with a 500. Yeah, they did. I mean, there's a lot of stuff you don't hear about, even though you're working on the stuff.
Is that right?
Yeah, I mean, more so of late, with the factory Yamaha, they don't tell you anything. Really? No, it's almost like they don't trust you.
So there's an engineering team that works that side of it, and then there's a mechanical team.
Yeah, and there's all the crew chiefs and the engineers that work with the Japanese engineers. They get to know a little bit, but I mean...
But not the full.
Definitely not. I mean, we'd turn up at a test. Typically, Bruno was our mid-year test for the Grand Prix. Yeah. And we'd go there and we'd know we'd have a new bike, but I wouldn't know what's new on the bike until it arrives and I start building it.
Wow.
That sort of secrecy, it's quite a weird thing. So as far as you're talking about the crankshafts and stuff like that back in 99, I couldn't tell you what changed back then. I mean, although I built the engines as well, we all shared the engine build sort of thing. But from the time I started, I don't remember a big change with the crankshafts and stuff like that. But they were good times back on the two-stroke. I really enjoyed the two-stroke. Yeah. And if you talk to a lot of the mechanics that have gone through that phase of Grand Prix, I mean, there's
Alex and yourself.
How much we enjoyed that part of it. It was more hands-on because you're after every session you'll be pulling the cylinders off and and checking for detonation and all that sort of stuff and cleaning the heads. And then on the Thursday when you're doing your prep work, you'd build a new crankcase for Saturday night, a race engine. Wow. So you're putting all that together, that's sitting there. So then on Saturday night, you pull the engine out and put a brand new engine in and put those cylinders and heads off the other bike onto that. And it was, I'd say, more rewarding in a way, you know. And I think when we moved to the four-stroke, everyone thought, oh, wow, not going to do half as many gearboxes, not going to do, haven't got all the engine stuff, but you end up just changing engines all the time. And gearboxes, we
pull the full unit out.
Yeah, but you end up rotating them round because the engines, you got certain mileage on them, so you keep the good ones in there for the races, so you end up rotating engines around a lot. But it was different at the beginning of the four-stroke era because we had unlimited engines, and they were just being changed all the time.
That first year of the 990, Jesus, some money must have been spent.
Oh, yeah, totally. Yeah, unlimited engines. We did, I remember, because Davide Brivio, the guys, everyone knows him from Suzuki, he was our team manager there. We tried to cut a deal with him to pay us just for engine changes. We did so many. Yeah, seriously. We said, look, just pay us X amount of money for each engine change, because we did something like 100 engine changes in a year. It was phenomenal. We were doing like 5 or 6 a weekend. Easy.
Holy crap, seriously?
Yeah. We'd be doing 2 a night, take the engines out, come back in the morning because they wanted to do some maintenance on it that had to be done overnight, come back early in the morning, put an engine back in.
Wow. Were they flying parts around at that time? Like, I know that was sort of the time where Michelin were flying tyres around and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Engines the same sort of thing? A lot of it was still done.
I think they were flying engines around because they were endless. They were just getting rotated around sort of thing. They'd go back to the workshop and get service and stuff like that and put new valves and all that sort of stuff in it. So I don't see that as being, even though they limited it down to the number of engines like of late, I'm not sure whether that made it that much cheaper, in hindsight, because they had to do all this development to make the engines last longer, like stronger cranks, rods, pistons, all this sort of stuff. But when you had endless amount of engines, you just do 800 Ks on them, pull them out, they'd service them, put them back in again, because most of the running gear is all fine. All the crankcase and all that sort of
stuff.
All
the basic stuff,
Yeah. So, I don't know. It sounds like a fancy way to save money, but I'm not quite sure whether it really worked that well.
Yeah, and I think that's the consensus amongst a lot of people, even with the racing side of it, with motocross and that as well. Like everyone's saying, the 250 era for motocross was still probably one of the best, and then, it just doesn't seem like it worked, No,
I don't think it was a big cost-saving exercise, because everything had to last like 50% longer.
Yep.
And
you're still pumping a lot of oil through them.
Well, yeah, that I can say. They certainly burn a lot of oil, that's for sure.
So, but and Carlos' time. So Carlos would have been a young pilot at that time.
Yeah, he was a great kid. I mean, he when we came over to Australia to Phillip Island, he came and stayed at my house here and with his mate, and we went diving, and I took him out jet skiing, and he destroyed my jet skis. Just that sort of kind of character. But he was a fun guy to be around, But he was so close to being great, but not quite there, I don't think we won a race with Carlos, to be honest, in 4 years. But he was always right there, Max was just a little bit better. And back in that time, we were competing against Valentino on the Honda, and there's Barros around. There's a lot of good guys, but he had a bit of a nickname for old Checa. Yeah. And he lived up to the name. I think we still probably hold the record. I think 28 crashes in a season.
Wow.
So
that's a lot.
Yeah, and that was my first year with him. I went, man, if I can last a whole year out with Carlos, I can do anything, I reckon. We have fixed bikes that are on fire, and just, we went to a test. I always went to him, test him in Magello, and he crashed 3 times, twice in the same corner, and just kept coming back. We couldn't fix him quick enough.
Really?
Yeah, and I got to the point that the team manager said, Carlos, you got to go home. I said, we've got nothing left for you. The sort of guy that would just keep pushing and not realise why he crashed,
Not looking at it,
Yeah, but he's super talented at the same time, So, yeah, I mean, I really enjoyed the time working with him for sure,
And his career went on too, like he that consistency came. I feel like he had a magnificent career.
So. No, he really did. Like I say, he was always just so close to greatness, He was great, but there's only a few people who get to that point that
0.1% or whatever it is.
Yeah, well, I mean, okay, Max was super dominant, but Valentino railroaded his career as far as being the greatest. Yeah. Look at Sede Gibernau, he was great too.
Yeah, until
he had the conflict with Valley, and Valley said, "You're never going to beat me again." He never did.
Mate, that's just That was huge, hey? And like, you're right in the middle of this at that time.
Yeah.
That must have been a strange moment, hey?
Yeah, I remember one time that
Was that Qatar?
Yeah, that was Qatar. Yeah, actually, it came up on my Google feed the other day. Just the pictures of where some of the guys of the team cleaned the start line.
Oh, really?
That was that weekend.
Qatar 04, I think it was.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, Sete won it, and Max got a penalty because the guys did the same as what we did. And I remember Valentino saying to him, "That'll be the last race you ever beat me in." Sete, and it was.
Never did.
Never beat him again.
Oh, that's just wow.
That's motivation for you right there, isn't it?
Yeah, 100%.
And I think it wasn't it. I think it might have been that same year when we had that big ding dong with him in Jerez, the last corner.
Yeah. Actually, no, that was the start of the next year.
Oh, was it?
I feel.
Yeah, so pretty much carried on. From
carried
there,
straight
really.
on. Yeah, that was.
Yeah, it was pretty interesting when you think about the rivalries.
Oh, huge rivalries, eh? Yeah, because that was the Qatar. Did Qatar used to end this? It was always Valencia, but I'm pretty sure Jerez one was the start of 05, I think. And
yeah.
Wow, what a way to start a year.
Yeah. It was because good racing. Yeah, I love going back and watching some of the races because you tend to, over this period of time, you tend to forget some of those races. Then you see them, and you go, wow. Or like think about Welcome, our first race there with Valentino, where we won, and then we won the title.
Yeah.
I look back to that, and I watched it about 6 years ago, and went, there's not one rider. 6 years ago, there was not one rider that was on the start line that is actually still racing, and it's been another 6 years. So there's almost feels like two generations of riders. You know, because Marco Melandri was racing, and he was younger than Valentino.
Yep.
Now he's gone, and now you got the Fabios and Morbidellis and all those sort of things. There's just, I don't know, it's just phenomenal to think that he's even still lining up. You know, when you've got so many people have come and gone.
Oh yeah, 100%, and still heavily competitive. Still there, you know.
Yeah, on the right day when the stars align, he's as good as anybody.
Yeah, 100%. It's cool. Like, it's really, really cool to see. Now, your Yamaha time, like, because you stayed at Yamaha before Valentino came, obviously.
Yeah, Carlos was still there, and Max were there, and I was still with Carlos. And to be honest, I was in those years with Carlos, I was still flying home a lot, and I'd be on the plane with Jeremy Burgess and Alex and Dickie Smart would be on the plane, and they'd just rib me all the time about, we beat you again, you know, like they give me a hard time, you know, in a nice way, you know, not take it on the chin. It was
the Australian way.
Yeah, that's right. The Australian way of driving down on a Kiwi. But anyway, it was great banter, and we were all pretty close. And I said, look, if there's ever a job down at Honda, I'd love to go down and work there with you guys, you know. He goes, if someone leaves, that's no problem. And it wasn't that much longer after that JB contacted me and said, look, hey, don't go anywhere, don't sign anything right now. He said, it looks like we're coming to you. Wow. And at that point, you know, Mick had talked about it lots of times, and, you know, nobody thought it was even feasible that any rider would leave Honda to go to Yamaha when we hadn't won for so long. Yeah. So it was it was a big deal back then. That was a really big deal. So JB said, look, they wanted to poach me because Max was leaving and he was taking his position, so I'd have to leave Carlos to go with Valentino. So that's what happened. I just moved across, and they got another guy to work for Carlos the last couple of years that he was there. So
that must have been, that was such a huge thing as an outside person. That must have been huge at the time when Valentino came across.
Oh, totally. I mean,
because Honda had the kingdom. You know, they had everything at that time. You know, they were just
total dominance. Because you think they had Teddy Okada, they had Mick, Greville, Valley. Yeah, I mean, there's just a protege, just a line of successful riders. You know, and whereas we were always pretty good, Yamaha, but never quite had it. You know, and when Valentino came, it just changed everything. I mean, I think back to the motivation behind everyone from the very top, from the Japanese, and it was led from the Japanese. Well, Davide Brivio, he started it because nobody believed that he could get Valentino to come to Yamaha. So he was the kingpin. Like, I mean, if you have to point the finger at one person that made it happen, it was Davide. Wow. You know, so he's got
a stern career.
He has. If you not just with Suzuki, but if you think back to what he got done, and I knew Davide and his brother from Superbikes because they ran the World Superbike team.
Oh, did they?
Yeah, with Noriyuki Haga and Colin Edwards. Yeah. So I was with Simon and Gobert at the time with the Kawasaki, and those guys were sort of next to us sometimes. So I got to know them through that.
So is that the Santander Super, probably.
Not sure about Santan. I think they did have them as a sponsor, but I don't know who the main sponsor was. I think it was just basically Yamaha sponsored, I think.
Wow.
But yes, I got to know Davide from that, and then he was our team manager. But yeah, he made it happen, you know. So if anyone wants to attribute the success story to Yamaha, a lot of it goes to Davide for sure. You know, getting Valentino for having the ghoulies to walk away from Honda because he'd had enough of them, and like, you know, everyone talks about how Honda believe they're the best at everything. So to walk away from it and join a company that didn't have the best bike by a long way, but Yamaha stepped up to the plate. Their project leader was insanely competitive and driven. You know, he moved mountains to make that project right. You know, yep. And having JB's experience in that, I remember the first test we transformed that bike in the first test to make it a usable bike from where it was struggling, you know. It was just JB's knowledge of what to do to a bike, you know, and in hindsight, I think when we went to Ducati, we thought we were going to be able to do a similar sort of a thing. Yep. You know, that success story of
rolling it over.
With enough experience and people wanting to do it. Unfortunately, it didn't happen, but certainly made it happen with the Yamaha.
Yeah, it was huge. And Honda, they didn't let Valentino test the end of season, did they? No. So you guys had to wait till February or whatever to do the first test.
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah, he had to sit that out.
Wow. So from February to whenever South Africa began, it was just work, I'm guessing.
Yeah. It was. And the bike was good, but we didn't feel like it was good enough, you know, with what they'd done. They changed the engine. The engine changed the bike a lot. Like, I mean, and Valentino was just so determined. Like when we got there, I thought, well, if we roll out of here and have a pretty good result, we can build, because we've got to build on it through the whole year.
Yep.
But to go there and just beat everybody the first race. I mean, I don't know how many times I've been interviewed about, you know, the highlights of your career and which race and all this sort of stuff. And, you know, I'd say 99% of anybody that's worked with Valentino would always say welcome.
Yeah.
The other one is Phillip Island I wasn't with him then. It was with Honda when he got the penalty, yellow flag penalty, and he had a 10-second penalty or something.
That was cool.
And he went from, I don't know, he had to win by 20 seconds or something. Yeah. Anyway, that was another impressive one.
Because that was the last year, I think, of Honda. Yeah, it was 03. Yeah. So for me, it was the year that you joined with Valentino. It was the 04 Phillip Island. Yeah. Where it was him and Gibernau. Yeah. And it was just a battle of two people and no one else was on the track. That was cool. that was pretty cool. Yeah. Know? So it's been some memories, I guess, along the way.
Yeah. I'd like to go back and sort of replay snippets of it and see it, you know, because I remember a lot of it. Yep. A lot of it I've forgotten. Yep. And you only have to see a video clip or something of it, and it reminds you, jog your memory of it again of it. Yep. But yeah, no, some great times. We've got plenty of videos to watch, haven't I?
For sure. How was the travel back then? Like travel until this year, travel's become a lot easier, you know, over the years. How was it back then, traveling around the world?
Yeah, it was. Sure was easy because it wasn't until 9/11 that it got difficult, really. Yep. I remember clearly, you know, all the security that we never had. Yep. I remember my first trip to. Oh God, this makes me sound old. My first trip to Italy when I worked with Simon. Yep. Had to fly to Europe and I went through America, and I remember sitting in the middle of the plane in economy, and at the back was a smoking section. Now, can you even get in your head being able to be on an airplane smoking, and it was allowed? And how do you separate the smoke and how dangerous that was?
Now you can't smoke in your yard.
So that gives you a sort of hindsight of, you know, of what it was like back then. But yeah, the travel was, when I first went over with the Superbikes, I pretty much spent the whole year over there. Mm. And then when the MotoGP and stuff like that, we still used to spend a lot more time over there. I'd be over there for like a couple of months and we'd travel around. We'd just drive, and actually we drove to all the races pretty much. We had leased cars and we'd drive, and in between the races we'd stop off and go windsurfing and, you know, see Europe, and it was great for that. And so there's a lot less travel, and we used to go back to the workshop to do the rebuilds and stuff, and then progressively it got to the point where everyone realised that it's cheaper to do the work at the circuit. You know, everybody can be home longer, don't have to get everybody to the workshop. And so it just transformed to that. So it sort of became fly in and fly out, basically.
Wow.
So I'd always fly on a Tuesday, get there or I'd leave here on a Monday, get there on Tuesday night, work Wednesday, setting up the garage and everything, work on the bikes Thursday, and then Friday, Saturday, Sunday racing, and then fly home Monday, if I didn't stay in Europe.
Yep.
But yeah, all the security and all that sort of stuff changed things a lot, But the offside to that is more companies flying. Emirates in the last 10 years, we flew with Emirates all the time, so you could get anywhere in Europe in 2 flights.
Very easy.
Prior to that, we'd fly British Airways and Qantas, so you'd have to go to Singapore, London, and then somewhere in Europe, so it was half a day longer.
Wow.
So there's been changes in all ways, but it's, evolution.
So is that the way it's going? Say the last 10 years, you'd come home on a Monday or something. Like say if it's say if you had 2 weeks or 3 weeks in between races,
Yeah.
would you come home?
Yep.
You would.
Often I'd come home if there was a week off.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, a lot. It depends what the calendar was. If I was going to be away for 2 or 3 weeks, or there was no time where they had a test. If there was 2 races in a week off, and there was a test and then another race,
Yep.
well, I'd stay over there if there's no time to come home. But so if that was the case, I might come home. Often I would fly home and be home for 5 days.
Yep.
I would get home on a Tuesday night or Wednesday morning, and then would fly out Monday night again. So I would do that a lot. Yes, and we were lucky enough. We had really good contracts with Yamaha to fly us home.
Yep.
And a lot of the flights were business class, so it made it easy.
For sure.
And it was because everyone, everyone had families,
Yeah.
and it's just way too hard to pack up everybody and send them over there. And everyone sort of kind of got used to the travel part of it. You just factor it in. It was never, oh, geez, got to fly home now.
It's just what it is.
Yeah, I mean, I remember leaving Sunday night, sometimes driving for 3 or 4 hours to catch a midnight flight out of somewhere,
Yep.
to get home.
It's so funny. Like it's like you're just going to work,
Yeah.
aren't you? Really, it's I'm going to work, but it might be anywhere. But that's what you're doing.
And to be honest, you take away all the glitz and glam.
Yep.
You're just going to work because you're just going there and the same people are there, the same trucks are there. You go inside the garage.
These are my work
same,
friends.
Same walls.
Yep.
I mean, often I've walked out of the garage and just forgotten exactly even where I was, what country I was in.
Really?
Yeah, because you were in there and you're just in your zone.
And you've done it 400 times.
Yeah, no.
Yeah, it's just
You just walk in there and you pack up, wash your hands, and grab your backpack out of the truck and just go. You sort of give yourself a second take to think, what country you're in, because your work environment is the same as it was last week and the week before and the year before and the year before that.
Because it's replicated. That's the
Yeah.
You want your tools in the same place. Everything's going to be the same because it's got to be the same.
No, exactly.
It's a method.
Yeah, exactly. It's got to come second nature, and unfortunately those other parts become part of it.
Yeah.
And it's not until you leave and you drive and you go, oh yeah, okay. We were going for dinner tonight, boys. If you're you're going to have the local cuisine, and so no, it's very interesting times.
What's been a good place? What's one of the best places?
That's a tricky one because everywhere's got something about it you like, and it wasn't until this last year where we were really restricted with those 5 months where when we finished work, we'd just go back to the hotel and we'd have hotel food because they didn't want us going out into the outside the bubble. And it really hit home to all of us how much we enjoy the fact that when you finish work, you go home, have a shower. Guys might go for a run, go to the gym. Then you'll go out into town and live that part of the country, the life, And it was that's a huge part that we missed, this last year. And we were all going, geez, it just doesn't feel half as enjoyable because you can't enjoy where you are.
Wow.
But you can go to Japan, and I love Japan because it's so different. A lot of places in Europe are very similar, although the language is different, but it's not culturally different. Like Spain and Italy, all those countries are very similar. I love going to places that are really different. I mean, I love going to, when you go to Argentina, even though Argentina, where we go, is in the middle of nowhere, there's such a difference in lifestyle. You got people driving around the latest Hiluxes, and then right behind it is a family and a horse and buggy, with donkeys and cart, with kids and stuff, and you just go, wow, that's a transition that you even with traveling around the world for 20 years, you have to have a second take at.
Yeah.
Things like that. And as sad as it is that there's such an extreme, that's what makes it a beautiful place to go and see sometimes, you know. But I mean, I always love going to different countries. Like, this last year we went back to Portugal, Portimao, which we haven't been to Portugal for probably 10 years. And I mean, it's great going back to countries like that. I just love going to, I love going to America. I've always loved going to America, Indianapolis, Austin.
Laguna.
I mean, they all, Laguna. I mean, Laguna's probably one of the most, from mechanics and everybody in the teams, if you said, look, of all the tracks we don't go to, which one would you like to go to back? I guarantee everyone will say Laguna Seca. Staying at Monterey and on the coast there, it's just beautiful, and everyone likes to go to America, pretty much, whether you admit it or not, everyone likes to go there to go do the shopping and the food and all. There's something about it.
It's got a lifestyle.
Yeah.
It's got
love it or hate it.
Yep. Everyone wants to go there.
Everyone wants to go there.
Those Laguna Seca years were unreal.
Incredible, yeah. They were great. Yeah, we had some good times in Indianapolis. Not the same results, and it's not as spectacular as Laguna Seca, but yeah, it was great that we ended up getting back to America, because for so many years we weren't there, and then we had 2 races there.
Yeah, it was huge, and it was good to see. We went over to, in your Ducati time, we went to Laguna Seca.
Oh yeah.
So what's that, 11 and I think it was 11 and 12 we went. Yeah. And like what a place, and as a spectator, it was a great circuit,
I think going to Laguna Seca is like going to Donington. You can get a massive view of the circuit from one vantage
Any
point.
Given point. Yeah.
Even though the weather's completely opposite,
different,
polar opposites.
Well, I must say Laguna Seca of a morning.
Yeah, foggy.
It feels very
it's kind of eerie, isn't it?
It's weird
because that fog just hangs there on the hills.
And you never know. You just think, is it ever going to get sunny? And then all of a sudden, bang!
Yeah,
as a fair skinned person, it's pretty damn brutal. Have you ever been a spectator?
Yeah, I have this year. Me and Alex, when Valentino had COVID,
went on the other side of the fence.
Yeah, and that's probably one of the first times in 20 years I've been out on the circuit.
Really?
Yeah, and that felt really. We jumped on the scooter and rode around, and it was great to see, but you get so locked into watching a monitor and seeing the progression of everybody, lap times, section times and stuff. I missed that.
Wow.
I missed seeing what people are doing rather than seeing what they're doing, because you're watching 2 corners. If you're lucky, realistically, you can't see what's going on.
Yep.
You can't, not in the big picture.
No.
And you might be lucky enough to see someone make a pass or make a crash, but to be honest, I prefer being in the garage watching the monitor, so I can see what's happening on TV and seeing the progression that people are making, or you can understand so much more. People have got new tyres, they've gone on an outlap, what they're doing, things like that, and that's just through so many years of trying to understand what you're doing and how you're trying to get ahead with the bike. You're watching them on monitors, trying to make a judgment. Is he going to come in and jump on the other bike because he hasn't gone quicker on that, and what you've done to it.
Yep.
Many little things, that you just pick up that you don't realise you're picking up. But yeah, being a spectator, it was good, but I'd rather be in the garage working on the bike.
Straight away.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, I'd rather be there on the heart of it.
That's cool.
Yeah.
As a mechanic, what's your job? Like, say, do you have a suspension person come to you and say, we need 2 more clicks of rebound, or how does that work? Obviously Valentino will come in with a debrief.
Yeah.
And what happens?
When you come into the Gary, I'll grab the bike, bring it in, we'll put stands on, put the tire warmers on. He'll go and sit down, and then he'll start talking. There'll be the crew chief, the data engineer, that's the European one. There'll be a suspension technician, maybe the tyre technician, because he bumps around between the 2 riders. And there'll be at least 2 or 3 Japanese engineers, and they'll just talk about what's going on. The suspension guy, he'll make all the changes. If he wants the forks out, the shock out, we do it all. Mm-hmm. Very rarely, unless he's under the pump doing something, will we change fork springs or things like that. Because we've got one suspension guy just for Valley, so 9 times out of 10 he's got time.
So that's his job.
That's his job. Yep. Yeah. Analysing. He analyses a lot of data and stuff like that. Comparing the year before, the session before, all that sort of stuff. So he's pretty busy just in data stuff as well. So, but yeah, he does that. So we don't do much of that. It's like geometry changes. head collars, offset of, ride heights, shocks, springs, gearing, gearboxes, maintenance. They just, they might be talking for half an hour and you've sort of twiddling your thumbs, cleaning the cowlings, got the fuel tanks off, waiting for that, doing a little bit of stuff with the tyres or anything. Then I'll go, okay, we need head collars on both bikes, which means forks out, all the triple clamps out, all that, and 2 gearboxes. So then then it's just chaos for like an hour and a half, just like that. So both gearboxes out, and then you got to go in the truck, and because the gearboxes are really complicated now, so they take a fair bit of time. You can't rush them, but you just got to be really particular with them.
Wow.
So you can be sitting around for 10 minutes doing nothing, and then balls to the wall until you got to start the bike. We always start the bike half an hour before the session, so that's our crunch point. Half an hour before the session starts, warm the bikes up, go out, bring them back in, take the transport tyres out, put the proper tyres in, and any last checks. So yeah, the day rolls on pretty quickly. If they mess around with this decision making, it can make you busy. But yeah, getting back to your question about what we do, there's 3 mechanics, and we pretty much we can all do what's necessary to be done. We don't. One guy, Bernie, he was a Belgian guy. I'd say he did 90% of the gearboxes. If we were busy, I'd try and do one at least every weekend on the Thursday, just to keep my hand a little bit, so that if I had to do it,
it can be done. Yeah,
it's okay. But yeah, the guy that's doing it, I'd say it's almost better that either one guy does or 2 guys do it, and they do it all the time, because you can't. It needs to be second nature, totally. And you don't want to be thinking about it too much, because there's so many moving parts inside the gearbox now. So he'd do a lot of that. But some weekends you'd only change 2 or 3 gearboxes. Sometimes you do 6, 8, 10. Because you do one, might be an experimental one for the session. So then when he comes back, you might do the other one, or you go back with that one. The next morning you might do both. So, and every time you change an engine, obviously a gearbox comes out, because that gearbox is a gearbox that's got mileage on it. So that goes in the engine. The gearbox doesn't stay with that engine.
Right.
So you're always doing stuff like that. So there's always plenty to do. But everyone, and if there's something needs doing, you just grab what you want to do and do it. And the other guy does the other thing. There's no hard and fast rules. Some people are better at doing some things than others.
Yep.
And you just gravitate towards that, but it doesn't mean to say you're the only one that does it.
Wow, it's huge.
Crash times is when you really come into your forte, and that's, ask most mechanics, it's the worst time, or it's the best time.
Yeah.
When you have a big crash, because you're under the pump, that's where you're getting paid the money.
Yep.
You've got completely destroyed bike, and you've got 2 hours to build a new one, because your objective is always have 2 bikes. I don't think we've ever, that I remember, started a session where we haven't had 2 complete bikes, even if the one was written off in the middle of the session. So that's your prime objective, is to have 2 bikes. So you just, first of all, bike comes in, you've got to weigh up, okay, what do we got here? Do we need to take the chassis out, or can we touch it up enough to get by? Just things like that. You've got to make calls straight away. It's never the Japanese that make those calls.
Really?
They'll be there, because they got no real concept of time and getting things done, because you've got to prioritise. Some things are important. They might look crappy on the track, but if you don't forget about that, you're not going to get the other stuff done.
It's a different skill set.
It totally. They're good at analysing stuff and sucking through their teeth and thinking about stuff and not getting stuff done, whereas we'll be already pulling things apart and trying to find the problem or something. So there's a different mindset with Europeans, Kiwis, Australians. You're already thinking about what the problem is and how you're going to fix it quickly. I see that really clear with when you see how the Japanese work.
Oh wow! When you go to a race meeting, 2 chassis, or is there more chassis?
What do you mean? Well, you always start with 2 bikes.
2 complete bikes, but is there a spare chassis or something?
Oh, there's multiple chassis. Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Multiple chassis from what you're running, and multiple types of chassis that you can run. So I'd probably say the spare parts guy would have at least 4 to 6 chassis in the truck. We can build easily 4 complete new bikes with what we've got there.
Every weekend?
Or we have enough parts there to build 4 complete bikes minimum. and some parts you'd have enough to do 20, because some parts are high turnover, some aren't.
Yep.
Swing arms would have various styles, and there'd be easily 10 swing arms in the truck in one time.
Man, it's crazy.
The parts, to be honest, the parts guy is one guy that you cannot do without.
Yep.
Mechanics can be sick and have half day off, or miss a test because they couldn't arrive, miss a flight. You take the parts guy out of the equation.
It doesn't work.
And it was like that a little bit a few times last year because of COVID, because he had to stay out of Europe for a little bit longer because of the Schenken rules. So he'd turn up on the Thursday, and we'd already worked on the Wednesday. So it was a bit hard us pulling through drawers trying to find the right parts. So
wow.
So yeah, some people got are really important in the team, and others are just important.
Yep. Yeah. There's like a scale.
Pretty much.
Man, been a fan for a long time, but that's something I didn't realise about the amount of chassis and stuff. I thought with the rules, I thought you have your 2 bikes, and that's what you got to start and finish your weekend off. But no,
chassis are one of the things that are open. Engines are the things that are fixed.
They're fixed, yeah.
Everything around it. Bodywork has to be homologated, and you're pretty much set with 1 or 2 styles of that. But chassis are open, same with swing arms and stuff like that.
Yep. Brakes,
all that sort of stuff. You can do what you want with that. So you've got an endless amount of things you can change for that. And quite often you'll have, I know, for example, in the last year, the 3 top riders in Yamaha had 3 different chassis.
Really?
Mm.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's pretty crazy, isn't it?
It is, yeah, and it's a personal preference a little bit. Yamaha will bring one. They don't want it that way.
No.
It makes more sense to have everybody on the same, just for evolution. But riders jump on one and they think it's better and they stick with that, and then, quite often they'll go 2 races and go, oh, okay, the other guy's faster than me, and, they're all sensitive to things like that. The riders, they see someone go quicker than they all of a sudden wonder what they're having, regardless of the fact that they chose what they got.
It must get in your head.
Oh, it's a head game for sure for those guys as well,
Yeah, definitely.
We only have to look at what happened at the end of the season with Morbidelli. He had the old bike.
Yeah.
And he was faster than everybody, so everyone's questioning what they're on, But at the end of the day, they're riding what they chose. So
he looked really good, eh?
He was. He was one of the highlights of the season for sure.
Definitely.
Took a little bit longer to get used to the bike, but Fabio jumped on it, was quick, and Frankie took a little bit longer. But then I think Frankie's the more consistent for sure.
Yeah, he looked fantastic.
Yeah,
closing out the season and that.
I think we have a great season. 21.
I reckon.
Yeah.
Tell me this: in 03, you had Max Biaggi in your box.
Mm-hmm.
Then 04, Valentino comes in.
Yeah.
But you got 2 total different characters.
Yeah.
How Valentino at that time is just one from the Honda stuff and that.
Yeah.
How was he at the start?
He was great. He was really welcoming. I remember we went to the workshop, and it was the first time I'd met him actually.
Yeah.
Him and Ucho and his manager and that turned up there and walked up and introduced himself, and we all see these superstars on TV and think they're like gods, but if you want to be grounded by somebody that's normal, go and meet Valentino on a non-race day, or when you don't see him in a set of leathers. He's more normal than you and me.
Wow.
Really.
It's cool, eh?
And Drews is more normal than you and me. He's just one of the boys, really. It's incredible. It's incredible to think that he's managed to keep that demeanour throughout his career with what he's done, how popular he is. It's a credit to him, really.
Yeah, definitely.
And the people around him, because he understands that to be normal, you've got to be surrounded by normal.
Yep.
Because you see all the superstars, pop stars and stuff, and you think, wow.
Doesn't go that good.
You can see why they're not normal, because look who they're hanging with,
That's right.
that sort of thing. So it's a credit. There's a lot of people out there like that, and there's a lot of people that probably aren't.
Just you're a reflection of who you're around.
Oh yeah, sure. And that rubs off on how we are with them,
Yep.
You can just be totally honest with him all the time, and joke around with him, and he's but put that aside, super professional. Like his rituals and what he does to get where he got is second to none.
Yep.
You don't get to be that good without dedication and time put in. So yeah.
it must feel good on your side, you know, especially at the start. Like, you know you've got a rider that's dedicated.
Yeah.
You know, like, you know, if you do your job right and I cross every T, dot every I,
Yeah.
you know that they're going to do it as well. That must feel good too, eh?
Oh, totally. Because I'm sure there's a lot of guys out there that they're riding around, but they're not, you know, they could probably give a lot more. With Valley, you knew that he was, you know, if it didn't happen, there was a reason for it not happening, you know, the results, you know. And we didn't have the best, at the beginning, we didn't have the best bike. I mean, lots of times through his career, we didn't have the best. Now, I can't even think of the years that I thought, you know, our bike is superior to everybody's. I don't really remember that time whether we did, you know, because we're still competing against a Honda. Yeah. You know, and but he made the difference, really. Yeah. He really did. Because I don't think if Max had stayed with him, Max would have got those results that we did, even with the development that we had on the engine and the bike, you know. Because I think, you know, Valentino was next level.
He was the thing. Yeah, he was that little percent, I guess, that was needed.
Yeah. And to be honest, we were talking about Max compared to Valentino. Max was nice enough, but he always had if I could say that, he always had an ulterior motive. He'd talk to you, but he wanted something from you, information, or you know, you couldn't. He wasn't a square shooter. You know, you've never felt like he was talking to you because he thought you were a great guy.
Wow.
But nice enough in saying that. You know, personally, I haven't got a beef against him. You know, but completely different character.
Yep.
Yeah.
Whereas Valentino, different story. If what's coming out, that's the story. You know,
no, exactly. Yeah.
Now, going to, you know, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, Jorge comes in at some time.
Yeah.
How was it when the wall came up? Did that change anything from a mechanic side of things?
No, nothing
Because
at all.
You're a crew, you know, like it's still a team. Like,
yeah, I mean,
you've got to be mates, I'm guessing, eh?
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, the friendship you have with the guys, the other mechanics, because there's all those days that you're working together, you know, setting up the garage, doing stuff like that, building bikes. And the wall, the way I remember it, just got blown out of context. And if I could be wrong about this, but I think at some point it was a little bit to do with tyres.
Right.
But, I mean, the media always blow too much out of it.
They do.
And I think the wall was probably wasn't necessary. It was an overkill to everything. And then everyone got on the bandwagon of it. But, you know, the engineers still talk together. I mean, would go around behind the wall because there's a gap there because you've got to get out.
Yep.
And would still go over there and talk to the mechanics. It's not like, you know, it was
still business as
taboo
usual.
or anything. It was just more a visual thing.
Yeah.
It was completely unnecessary and it didn't change anything the way I saw it.
Because that was around the time of the Bridgestone Michelin thing, wasn't it?
Yep.
It was that sort of changeover period.
Exactly. Yeah, at the same time. So, yeah, it was interesting. Everyone's, you know, it gives something people something to talk about.
Thank goodness that was before social media became such a big thing, eh? Seriously, like.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you can imagine.
Oh, it's just changed. It's changed the sport in a way. Like, it's driven a lot of positive. It's probably got a lot of new people to the sport.
Yeah.
But at the same time, there's some things on there you're like, oh, really? You know, does it need to be like that? So.
Yeah, no, there's a lot of negatives to it, but I know it's kind of necessary in a business side of it. But as far as like people commenting about things they probably don't need to comment about, it's easy when you're behind a keyboard, isn't it?
Oh, much easier.
Yeah,
much easier.
You know, so yeah, there's plus and minus for all that sort of stuff.
So that era, like that was a really cool era coming from the 990s into 800s.
Yeah.
How was that? Was that a big change for you?
No, not a big change at all.
Really?
Not from what we did.
Not from your side of the world?
No.
Yeah.
And when you think about the reasoning, unless I understood it wrong, they wanted to try and slow things down a little bit, but that was a futile effort right from the word go, because you only have to look at the corner speed of the 250s and stuff compared to the MotoGP bikes. They go around the corners as fast as we do. So making a bike that had a smaller engine that was lighter, how was that going to make us slower?
Made no sense.
Not at all.
No.
And our lap times were not that much different. We just spent a whole heap more money on development to get the same sort of power out of a 800.
Yeah.
Made the things rev harder, went through engines faster. So, yeah, I mean, there's a reason we went back the other way, back to 1,000, because it didn't work.
Nah, because the corner speed, you know, was just massive, hey?
Yeah.
Like,
no, it was yeah, I don't know what they were drinking when they thought come
there
up
would have
with
been something. Okay, so 2010. What sort of time does it take, like, to Ducati starts popping up on the radar? Obviously,
Yeah.
Does, like, you're working with Jeremy Burgess at the time? Does he come to you and say, "Hey, we might be looking at doing something," or how does that work? Like, how does it work?
It's amazing because you'd think there'd be a lot of discussion about it. Valentino keeps a lot to himself. You know, he doesn't come out and say, "Hey guys, I'm thinking about doing this. What do you think?" He's never done that.
Okay. Yep.
You'll hear a bit of a rumour, won't be much to it. Then he'll say, "I'm going to Ducati. I want you guys to come." It'd be like that.
Just simple.
I've done a deal.
Yeah.
You can come if you want. There's spaces for you. You just negotiate with them directly what you want, what you need to go there, you know. And it was like that. You don't have to go, but I want you to come.
Yeah.
You know, and
just simple.
Yeah. And I guess we all thought, oof, after, you know, all that time in Yamaha and on those titles, I guess Valentino deep down really wanted to win on 3 manufacturers. That must have been his
driving force, eh?
The driving force for it, yeah. And I guess like little puppets, we went along with it. We thought we could do it as well. And JB, Ucho didn't think it was a great idea.
Really?
No, he tried to talk Valentino out of it, you know, and that came out later on once we'd started the season, realised that we had an uphill battle. But, you know, kudos to him for hanging in there. I'm sure he would have tried to get out of it, the contract earlier than he did if he could have, but he couldn't. So he's there for 2 years. So it was interesting, frustrating. That had everything in it, you know. No success as such. Lots of crashes. We had a lot of ambition to do better things, you know, but they just got stopped so often. In saying that, we weren't able to change the bike like we thought, but they didn't seem to want to change it either.
Yeah.
You know, it was just everything that got met with like a bit of a brick wall, you know. And it's kind of disappointing that like 3 or 4 years after we left there, they changed it a lot and got some success, pretty much. Yeah, because when we were going there, everyone was crashing on the bike. Everyone was crashing on it. And then you got to the point where pretty much no one was crashing on it. So they made a big improvement. So I don't know whether a lot of the information we had finally filtered down because the guy that was in charge of it left.
Yeah.
So I don't know the politics of that, but yeah, it was pretty frustrating, but good experience. I met one of the mechanics that I worked for the last 8 years was there, and he was the mechanic that stayed there as our liaison sort of thing. When I was at Yamaha, all the Honda guys came and I stayed there with the Yamaha. Yeah. And then when we went to Ducati, one of their guys, he's an American guy, he stayed there, and we managed to drag him back with us when we came back to Yamaha. So in that sense, it was something really good came out of that because he got out of Ducati and now he's still in the factory team. So
that's cool.
Yeah, it's cool. He's a really nice guy.
What did it change in your day-to-day life? Were they similar bikes actually to work on?
Much more complicated.
Really?
Yeah, much more complicated and
the processes.
With the Yamaha, when Valentino came to Yamaha, the bike was, I'd say, messy. You know, it took a lot to make the thing safe for races. You know, with zip ties and stuff like that, holding everything off things that could rub through, and in a period of like 2 years, we Yamaha just transformed that. The bike became super safe, easy to work on, lots of a full race bike. You know, I felt like our bike was some stages was a bit of a test bike. And then when we went to Ducati, then you really realised how good our bike was, even though over a period of time our bike sort of slipped away a little bit and wasn't quite as user friendly. But when we went to Ducati, there was a lot of stuff on there that was difficult to work on. You know,
just over-engineered?
Over-engineered and not thought out very well. You know, they'd have all the bolts and stuff are odd sizes, you know, like big triple crown nuts would normally be 27 or 30 or anything else. Theirs would be like 25 or 26, and you just go, why? And they go, well, we had the stuff in the warehouse. You know, it was just illogical reasoning for some stuff. Because trust me, race bikes, race cars, race anything has to be simple. Keep it simple, stupid.
Yep.
and that's how it is. If you're making everything, bits and bobs that go on it, make them the same size bolt that you use on everything, so you don't have to pick up 5 tools to do a job. You'd be changing something on the brake, as an example. This is one that we always use because it was the wackiest thing to rebuild a foot peg assembly with a brake and all that stuff. You needed like 23 tools to do it.
Really?
Yeah. And on the Yamaha you could do it with like 5. Just so many silly things that could have been better. And honestly, when we went there, because all the guys from Honda had already been at Yamaha, and they had the knowledge from, and they brought a lot of knowledge from Honda to Yamaha that Yamaha used, and going to Ducati could have made a great bike. Like, it may not have had the best results, but it could have been a really user-friendly bike by taking all the information from the mechanics, but really didn't have that much interest in it all, to be honest.
Wow.
Yeah.
Because you think they'd be able to refine it so much with that experience.
Yeah, they could, but they didn't really take the advantage on doing it. I mean, I think a lot of things, when they changed the chassis in the later years after we left, a lot more things became more normal, but I look at the bike and it's still some pretty complicated stuff on it.
Wow.
But that's, Ducati, they like to push the envelope. Well, you only have to look at the aerodynamics and, how the wings develop and all
Sure.
that. That's, they're always at the forefront of trying something new, and sometimes you can put all this stuff on, but at some stage you've got to make it user-friendly.
Yeah, and like you said, you got to keep things simple too.
Yeah, sure, yeah.
And I guess the same thing happened with when you went to go back to Yamaha. Valentino must have come in and said, "Hey, we're going back to Yamaha. Up to you if you want to stay." Or
yeah, I think everyone was ready to go back at that point. We were really lucky enough that Yamaha made positions for us to go back, because Valentino at that point was very thankful that he got a chance to come back.
Yep.
And so were we. And it was a little bit harder for him when he came back. He thought he was going to come back and jump on the bike and be where we were, but Lorenzo was there then, and it really took him 18 months to get back up to speed on the bike when he came back.
It looked like, as an outsider, that it had changed so much in that time too. That 2 years, things look different.
I think so, and I think because Valentino probably had control of the development sort of thing, and with him gone, things sort of leant the way towards Lorenzo, which, naturally.
Yep.
And things changed a little bit, because I think when he came back, the bike was a little bit different chassis-wise and things like that. So Valley's really good at developing stuff. I'm not sure how I'd class Lorenzo as developing something for the better. He can jump on and say, yeah, it is better or it's not, but to say what he actually wants to go faster, I don't think he's quite the same level, because when we came back, I don't think the bike was quite as good as it was when we left.
No, because when you left, it seemed like a bike that people could get on and ride really well.
Yeah.
When it was the second time around, it looked different. That's my own perspective. I don't know if it's right, but it didn't look like something that others could get on and be fast.
Yeah, no, it wasn't quite as easy for sure. Yep.
And mid 2000s, must have been like 2010s, 15s, whatever.
Yeah,
that was a good time too.
No, it was. I think we kind of expected more, because we think the success we had up until we went to Ducati, I honestly thought we were going to come back and probably be able to replicate what we had done, sort of thing.
Yep.
But we came back and we had chances to get there, but never really got there. It was a lot harder than we thought. So yeah, it just took a lot to get used to the bike, and I think in a little bit of time we managed to change the bike a little bit more Valentino's way with his influence.
Yeah, okay, pushing that through. Now, how long did you spend with Jeremy? 12 years? What year did he finish? 15?
Did he finish in 15?
15 maybe? Geez, I don't know.
It might have even been earlier, 14 maybe. I can't remember, but yeah, 10 years at least, yeah.
That must have been a good, role model, whatever you call it. Like, that must have been a good influence.
It was great. It really was. He calls a spade a spade. Yep. We had moments when we clashed. Yep. With, not just me, with all the guys thing, but we got the job done, and we were there to win races, and that was at any cost sort of thing. Not any cost, but we put that in the forefront.
Yeah.
And JB was great at rationalising things that were going on around us. Like, he'd put a priority on things that needed to be handled for us to win races, whereas everybody else was trying to worry about the PR side of it. And he goes, trust me, that ain't going to happen if we can't do this. You know, we're going racing to win races, and that's my priority. That's our priority.
Yep.
All that other stuff is secondary. You know, and he was great at doing that. And he had conflict with a lot of people. I mean, he was so honest that, you know, I guess sometimes he rubbed people up the wrong way, but that was JB. He called it how he saw it, you know. And, I mean, he didn't win all those titles, all those people by chance. I mean, that's one talented man you got there, you know, and people that didn't respect him for what he'd done were silly them.
That's right.
You know.
And I think, like yourself as well, like you don't keep your job in a sport like that if you don't have respect or knowledge. You know, like he had a job from 82 to 2015 or whatever in the premier class of motorsport.
Yeah.
You don't keep in there unless you're good, you know?
No, and to be honest, Alex would agree with me. We were fortunate enough to spend a lot of time with him, and the things that I learned, you just can't learn in a book or a magazine or anything.
Really?
Working there with JB and the logic to everything, and everything was logical. It's not. He was old school. He'd look at the computer but he'd listen to the rider and go on his gut instincts and back up his thoughts with the computer. Whereas if I unbiasedly compare how it works now, everybody looks at the computer and make the decision on the computer. They don't listen to the rider enough and have enough knowledge to make a judgment call on that. Mm-hmm. You know, the data side of it seems to have taken over the thought process of how things get done. You know, and I think there's a detrimental side to that. There really is, because in the later years, everyone was spending so much time on the computer. And then they'd get so lost and they wouldn't even do anything relative to what the rider was complaining about, you know, and we get lost too easy. It was fun times. It really was. He's a funny guy, can be super serious, but super hard worker.
Yep.
Yeah.
Good work ethic.
Yeah, great.
That, and I guess with what you're saying there, that really resonates with can have a terrible day Saturday, then all of a sudden your team would come out on Sunday, warm up would be a different bike.
Yeah. You've
listened to the rider. You know, like nowadays it's harder, I guess, to do with all the data and that. But so many times over those, you know, 2004 to 10, you'd see Valentino come out on a Sunday and
I think about those days when, you know, the big thing with Valentino, you never write him off because come Sunday he'll be the race guy. And even in the later years when, even with so much more data being used and all that sort of stuff, he was always a better racer than he was at practicing. I mean, he's not one of those guys that goes out there and rides 10 tenths on a free practice too, you know.
Yep.
And as he got older, it was harder for him to be as quick as those guys on one lap, you know. And that's human nature. He's got to happen. He's 41 and they're 21.
Yep.
So that's always going to happen. But I mean, come race day, he was always the guy that would have extra in his pocket. Some guys are Monday heroes. You know, some guys you have a test on Monday and they might have finished like 10th on Sunday and they'll be the fastest on Monday. Valentino was never that guy.
Yep.
He put everything on a Sunday.
It was there.
That was the important day, you know. And he'd be a second and a half slow on Monday because he knows that the importance wasn't there.
And that's the crazy thing about pre-season test. You see a rider come out to the pre-season test and they've just blitzed, and it's happened in the last few years, and you're like, wow, their season's going to have to be good.
Yeah.
But come first 6 rounds, they're nowhere.
That's clearly a pressure thing, you know.
Yeah.
I mean, some people deal with it better than others, and although some, they don't look like they're suffering from it, they do.
It's there.
Yeah, it's there, and the results show. But Valentino, I mean, there's lots of times when we really turned the bike around. I remember sometimes when you think, wow, we nailed it this weekend, we thought about it. JB wasn't the sort of guy that was scared to jump out of his seat and walk around the bike when we were working on it and go, okay, you clowns, what do you think?
Really?
Yeah. Which I really, really appreciated that, because there was enough knowledge from the mechanical side of us that we weren't immune to knowing what was going on, you know, because although we weren't sitting there listening to it, we'd hear all the comments.
Yep.
Because, you know, a lot of time Alex and I would rush over there to hear what he say, and then we'd come back and we'd would talk about it with ourselves. What options? What would we do if we were doing the song?
Yep.
And I mean, fair play. JB would sometimes ask us that. We'd have, because we'd always travel in the car together, three of us, and we'd just throw ideas around in the car going back, and he was never one to say, you know what, I think you've got it. But oftentimes we'd turn up the next morning and
we've got it.
and he's got it. Yep. But it's come from some of our ideas.
It's cool.
But he was good at analysing stuff logically. I mean, it doesn't always come in the first sessions to get the great bike. You have to look at things and look back on other years and the same comments and stuff like that. But it's a bit of a science racing. Or people say, oh, it's simple and it's got the same all corners and tarmac and stuff. But when you get to the pointy end, it's a whole different point.
Yeah, you're at the premier. There's nothing bigger. In that sport. There's
exactly.
nothing bigger. What's been a really good day in racing life? Like, what's been a really good one?
Oh, winning.
Yeah, winning's always good. Obviously, 2004, that one we just mentioned before, that's obviously a flash.
Yeah, that's always going to be the best one. I think when you go into a weekend, probably for me as a mechanic, the best weekends are when you've had like something traumatic during the weekend. He's crashed or ridden off a bike and you've had to work like a dog to get it right, and you've gone out there and won it. Or, I mean, heaps of times we've had to build a new bike and he's gone out there, and I mean, you like to think that if you build a brand new bike, you'd go out there and do a couple of laps and come in and you'd be like, oh, is everything okay? Handlebars feel good and all that sort of stuff. We've built race bikes and he's gone out there and just lined up in the race and started and won. I mean, things like that. The other things as a mechanic, you just go, wow.
Yeah.
Now we got it right that time, I mean, you don't very often, you don't get it right, but the other times they make you feel really good.
Yeah.
Or you're struggling. I mean, when you go there and you're dominant all weekend, because there was a period there when Valley was really dominant. I tend to forget about it, but gee, we used to have a song on the music we'd play every time we won, like "We Are the Champions." We'd play it as loud as we could get it.
Wow.
And we must have seemed like the biggest mongrels in town, just playing that when we were packing up after a race.
Yep.
But it was just our way,
Yeah.
And I'm sure the other people hated it, but when we were finishing second, sometimes you'd just be so disappointed during that period of time, and that was just because you think, what do we do? What didn't we get right?
Yeah.
Because you're at the top of your game, and second just sounds bad saying it now after the last years of where we struggled a lot. Second just didn't cut it. It really didn't. And even as a mechanic, I felt that.
Yeah.
Because JB and everyone had that mindset. If we can't win it,
We're not
we're not going good enough.
Yeah.
You think of the championship that Mir just won. He won one race.
Yeah.
He had his average. He only had to finish fifth to win it.
Yeah.
I mean, at our best, we won 11 races in one season, and probably went down to the wire a little bit. Probably at some point, we didn't win it by like 5 races or anything, but 11 wins in such a different time.
Oh, it is. This last one was very strange.
Oh, very strange. Yeah, when you think of how many people
winners.
won it, and how many people had wins and failed, and I mean, it almost felt like nobody wanted to win the title last year.
Yeah, it really did. And you see Quartararo at the start, you think, okay, this is probably going to be it, but then the peaks and troughs, it was very strange.
It was, yeah. He seemed to get to France and fell apart.
It did, yeah, which is, it's a shame.
I think this year, 21 is going to be a great year again. I think it's going to be very similar to what we just had, I believe.
Yeah, I reckon. What's been one of the best celebrations? Like, surely there's an after party somewhere that's a good one.
Yeah, I mean, it would probably be some of the early ones, to be honest.
Yep.
Because I would have to say that not that many huge after parties probably in the last 10 years.
Yep.
I know everyone's getting older.
Sports changing, people are getting older.
Yeah, like sometimes in America, because everyone seems to go out in America on a Sunday night sort of thing and have a few after drinks and stuff there, but probably Portugal. I remember Portugal. I don't know whether it was because we won or not. We went out for dinner and some of the VR guys were there. And there was fish tanks, and they were putting their heads in fish tanks and pulling fish out with their teeth and drink behind the bar, drinking beer straight out of the tap. And
jeez,
one of the mechanics got pulled out of the surf by the beach there. What Valley was coming back from the nightclub, just went wayward. Just I don't know why. Sometimes
things just happen.
Things just happen, and there's other things that happen I probably can't even talk about. But it was just one of those places, one of those times, and I don't even know why.
Yep.
But there's the after parties are never as what people think they are. They think they're just out of control, and they're generally not. They're certainly in the early days they were a little bit wilder than they were in the later years. Because Valentino pretty much after the races, he got quite often jump on a plane and fly home.
Straight away.
Yeah, we're still packing up and his jet's taken off. So it's only the team going out for dinner and having a few beers, but never anything wild. Everyone's got flights to catch the next morning, or half the people try and get flights that night. So
that's the thing, and it's still work, isn't it?
Yeah, sure.
It's work.
Yeah. So it's not quite how it used to be.
What was the Portugal track before Portimao?
Estoril.
That's right. Yeah, I was trying to think what it was. So.
Yeah, really nice area. Same with Portimao. Portimao's in a nice area. I just really hope they have some more races in Portugal.
Yeah.
The fans love it, and Oliveira winning there the other week. The last race was a pretty good thing.
It's very good. Yeah, it's good to see.
Yeah.
Do you reckon New Zealand will get a Grand Prix?
I don't know. I haven't been to any of the Hampton Downs and all those places. Yep. I don't know. Yeah, I guess there's probably a small chance, but it's the financial. I think we've got facilities, whatever the circuit is in the South Island, the reasonably new one.
Highland Park.
Something, Highland Park.
Highland Park, something. Yeah.
I think that has great facilities, but it's in the middle of nowhere. I don't know whether there's enough accommodation, and to be honest, it's a big expense to hold a Grand Prix.
Yep.
You're like millions of dollars you have to pay to Dorna, and that's why a lot of the places we don't go to anymore. South Africa.
Bruno is off today.
Oh, really? Huh.
Yeah, it's a bummer.
Well, Bruno's one of the best tracks of the circuit, and that's all financial. It's not because people don't want to go there.
Yep.
And I guess Espeleta from Dorna, he's been subsidising a lot of circuits in different places around the world. It's like they want to have riders from different countries. So it's a shame. If you could just pick out places you could go to, and it was not political or money driven, it would be great places to go to, but I really can't see us ever going to New Zealand, unfortunately. Although, I'm sure the spectators would love it. Just too expensive,
Do you reckon Australia will continue?
I think so, yeah. I know they're trying to change the time of the year that they have it.
Do you agree with that?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah? As a team person?
Yeah, just for the conditions and everything like that. Like, we used to always go there early in the season. We'd go to South Africa, Phillip Island, and Brazil, I think, in the same kind of order. Having it at the end of the year, the weather's too climatic.
It's too hard, yep.
And the problem is that Formula One and Superbikes got their hands on the beginning of the season, but there's been a lot of talk for a long time, and Valentino told me last year that it's pretty much done and dusted, that they were going to, I think 22, they're going to try and have Phillip Island one of the first races.
It makes sense.
Well, it does, because if we get, as it is now, where if we go to Qatar and then go to Europe for the first race, it's still pretty cold in Jerez that time of the year. It's not as warm as you'd like it. So, if we had another race in the Southern Hemisphere while it's still summer, it just makes sense to follow the sun.
Yeah, if you come here in March, late March, something like that, it'd be perfect.
Yeah, that'd be good.
Geez, you've travelled some. You really travelled some.
Yeah.
I think it's really cool now to look at, obviously, Jeremy, I don't know about this year, but last year we had Michelin job within ASBK.
Yep.
Yourself now, you've started Desmo Sport Ducati.
Yep.
It's cool to have that experience and some of those people coming through, into the teams here. I reckon it's pretty cool, isn't it?
It is really good. I mean, when I came home, a few people said, "Oh, you're going to get a job in Australia racing?" I said, "No, I won't do that sort of thing." But it just happened because Alex, I don't know when you're going to put this podcast out here, but I can probably tell you now because you'll probably find out. Alex has actually taken JB's job.
The Michelin one?
Yeah.
Oh, good. That's cool.
Yeah, so that's good. So he spoke to me the other day, and it's probably, I don't know if it's been announced, but he spoke to Ben about it. But yeah, so he's back on the tools, like changing tyres and doing that thing for Michelin. So that's only, and for me working with Ducati and Troy and Ben, it's almost like a part-time gig for me because I'm used to doing 20 races and they've got 7.
Yeah.
So it's not a lot of time in my year, and we've done a few tests, and there's a few test days and a bit in the workshop, but I'm kind of enjoying the relaxed side of it, And it is a lot more relaxed, you know.
Oh, it would be. Yep.
But in a nice way, you know. I mean, we've still got the same objectives.
Still doing races.
Yeah, exactly. And it's just scaled down, and I'm really enjoying it. Really.
And you're not working on junk either. Like you're working on good bikes. Like
exactly.
Bikes. Yep.
Yeah, and they run a good ship down there. They really do. And I mean, I think we're going to have a great year. I'm looking forward to it.
Ollie's going to be one to watch.
He's fast.
Yeah.
He really is. I mean, you think he hasn't done much on it. He wasn't too much behind Mike down at Phillip Island. He was a little bit more of a gap in Morgan Park, but yeah, he's going to be a front runner for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, especially I think the times that Yamaha did out at the Morgan Park and what we did, we're sort of like a little bit ahead of them, I think. So hopefully that translates to when we come race time.
Fingers crossed it's a good season. Like we need, the sport needs a good season here. You know, there's some really good riders and the packages are all good. It'd be nice having a nice season.
I think so. And having last year being cut short and everything like that, sort of, you know, everyone wants to see more racing, you know. And no, it'll be good.
Having Alex there, I got one more thing. Having Alex there, that must have been good for you. Over like travelling the whole time.
Oh yeah.
Does that make it a lot easier?
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's not. We weren't always sitting next to each other when we were flying, but we're always, you know, you spend so much time together. It was just, it's easy being with her. We've worked together for so long, so close, drive in the same car, stay in the same hotel, half the time we share the same room together.
Yep.
So, gee, I spent so much more time with Alex than I did my wife, you know, for 10, 15 years.
Yeah.
And got an easy demeanour. We like-minded, you know, we want to win. We think the same about how we work on the bikes and how they operate and to get the best out of them. So it's been great. You know, I probably couldn't have wished for a better guy to work with and to learn from, you know, because, I mean, he's got more experience than me. You know, he's been on the game another 5 years, probably even longer. But we started from the same background, motocross, you know, and then just, you know, his story, he will tell you about it one day, that how he got into the Grand Prix was just by chance. He wasn't like a road racing fan or anything. He just stumbled across it like I did.
Isn't it funny, eh? You know,
That was a great story. I mean, yeah, the stories he has are pretty impressive as well, you know.
And how many people along the paddock would be the same? They sort of stumbled into the sport.
Yeah, well, think of Alex. He's a bus mechanic.
Yep.
And the other mechanic that works with us, Belgian guy, he was a school teacher.
Really?
Yeah. I'm pretty sure in our team, Yamaha factory team, I was the only mechanic.
Bike mechanic.
Only bike mechanic.
Wow. That's so funny, isn't it?
It
you
is,
know, you're in the absolute top of the sport and you're the only bike mechanic within the shed.
Yeah, but it's
a
one of those
skill set.
things where it's not what you know, it's who you know. But you don't have to, because it's a little specific, the job, you just have to be that person that gets on well and can work under pressure. Basically, you don't have to be an A-grade mechanic or anything like that. You just got to have the good mechanical skills, and because you learn it all, you know. I mean, it's building a gearbox is not something you do every day as a bike mechanic, you know. I mean, you get a chance to do it, but not 4 or 5 times a weekend sort of thing. No. So and they're different to everything else. So yes, it's interesting when we talk about it, you know, the career paths that everyone's taken to get there. And I mean, sure, it's different now. I mean, if you want to be a mechanic, you have to do your tenets on a Moto 3, Moto 2, you know, stuff like that. You just don't step into a factory team.
Yeah, it'd be different, you know, like your first one going over to work on an RC45 in the factory team.
Yeah,
that'd be very hard, you know, to do now.
Oh, exactly, and that only came out of situation. I mean, we were going to be working on a good bike, but you know, Simon stumbled across got the factory ride, so then we straight away were on the factory. So I mean, I didn't really get to do it on crappy bikes. For the use of another word, you know, my whole career has been on factory bikes, so
pretty cool.
Been lucky, very lucky.
Hypothetically, if Valentino comes back into a different team at some point, would you go back over?
I'd certainly. The way my career finished there was kind of disappointing with COVID, and we didn't get the results we wanted. And I really wanted to finish my career with Valentino when he finished, and that was a disappointing part. Not the fact that I had to leave Yamaha because Fabio came, but I would have liked to have gone to Petronas to finish the story, basically. Yeah. But with COVID and stuff like that, you know, it'd be impossible to go back now because if I had left the country here, I wouldn't know when I was going to come back. So, but to answer your question, I'd certainly be interested, but it would have to be something challenging and something that I thought would light my fire again.
Yeah.
I was getting a little bit so long in the same team. Some things get a little bit old. Not the work and the drive to win, just surrounding things. So I certainly wouldn't say no to even consider something, but who knows?
Awesome.
2 days ago, a week ago, I don't think I'd be doing the Australian Superbikes.
Well, that's right. Travelling to 7 of Australia's GO tracks. No, we're actually really lucky. We have got some good places.
No, sure.
It is good. So,
no, that's good.
Mate, thank you so much for sitting down for a few hours. It's, as I said before, it's surreal, watch you on TV for whatever amount of years, and to sit down and talk to you about some of the things that I've grown up watching. Been pretty cool. So thanks heaps, mate.
No, appreciate it. Thanks for letting me talk.
No worries. Thanks.
Okay, cheers.